I'm going to be doing a demonstration of medieval woodworking later in the year, so I decided to build a bench that might have been used during that period. It's a low bench that you use sitting down. As a starting point, I used two books by Lost Art Press, Woodworking in Estonia and Roman Workbenches. Neither are period correct, but who knows what period correct really is. The archaeological record, such as it is, shows benches that were staked with the legs tenoned into the top and then wedged. As you can see, I started with a slab of elm, just less than 3 inches thick, a little over 15 inches wide in places, and about 6 feet long, which is about as long as I can get in the back of my car. A lot of sawing and a bit of sharpening, and we'll have the slab as the beginning of the workbench. Elm is good for this kind of joinery, because it has interlocked grain. It doesn't split the same way ash or oak might. That said, the wild grain also makes it a bit twisty, so it's not the most stable timber as it dries. Such a shame there's so little left. I've flattened and levelled it to about halfway. That means that I'll be able to work the face of a board without it rocking side to side, and the edge of a board up to about 4 feet, well supported. Here I'm just planing off the saw marks and chamfering the edges. I think I'm unlikely to clamp a board to the edge, so I'm not worried about it being square and true. Clean and easy on the hands will do. The staked legs are the interesting bit. I decided to put 6 on this bench, mostly because I think it looks pretty, partly because there's a chance I'll use them to brace myself while planing. I think 4 is probably better, 3 is probably best. Then you've got a nice stable platform no matter how rough the ground. Here I'm setting up to bore 5/8 inch holes from the top of the bench. It's easier at the ends because you get to sit on it. I often bore from underneath, but I hadn't used this gauge pattern bit before and didn't know how clean a hole it would leave on the other side. I needn't have worried. The moment the lead screw was through, it stopped cutting completely. I bored the rest from the bottom. With the holes drilled, I then used a reamer in the brace. The extension is there to give me a reference for the bevel gauge. I'm not going to get into rake and splay, sighting angles and resultant angles. Drew Langsner in his book The Chairmaker's Workshop has done that so well it doesn't need to be said again. However, it's worth noting that with 6 legs, there are 2 different angles. Langsner's tables make working this stuff out effortless. The legs were from an oak log my dad and I had split for chair parts a year or so ago. They've dried oval and needed a bit of work to get them round before I roughly turned the tenons. This tenon shave makes this very easy and would work even if you didn't have a lathe. The legs at either end lined up nicely, but the 2 in the middle needed a bit of adjustment. I was trying to keep the tenons as thick as possible, which meant using the full depth of the reamer. That doesn't leave much room for fettling. Once the legs were aligned, I sawed a curve from the tenons, wedged them and trimmed them flush to the bench top. Then I found the flattest surface I could, our kitchen floor, levelled the bench, marked the ends and sawed them off. Of course, no other surface is as flat, so with a 6-legged bench, at least one will always be off the ground. This left me with a rustic garden bench. I'd have left it there, but I've got some medieval woodworking to demonstrate, so I'm going to need some peg holes. Here is the patent pending, possibly, Shaw's auger bit guide, a 2x4 with a carefully bored hole to match your auger bit. When boring a vertical hole, it helps to have a line along your workpiece to sight your bit against. Stanley has thoughtfully put a crosshairs on the top of the chuck to help you. Hair to the right, I think. I'm using the layout Chris Shaw's recommends in Roman workbenches, but in time I expect it will become peppered with holes. Once the demonstration is over, it will become something akin to David Fisher's low workbench. The offcuts of elm will become pegs. Oak would probably have been better, but I'm running low on chair leg stock. Pegs are disposable, and I'm sure I'll be making more. I'm turning the pegs to 3/4 of an inch. This feels a bit skinny, but it means that the peg holes will accept my holdfasts. Now I just have to work out how to use it.